I say to people, your 20s and your 30s are your learning years, and your 40s and your 50s are your earning years. Your 60s and your 70s are your returning years, and your 80s and beyond are your yearning years. And what I mean by that is like, I just spent the last 2 decades really zeroing in on, man, I am uniquely good at this thing. Like, I am a 10 out of 10 on like this part of the spectrum. I don't really want to train my weaknesses anymore and go from being a 2 to a 4 in something. I just want to continue to be a 10 out of a 10 and these things. And I'm just going to hire for everything else that I am not, a strong in, that I'm a 4 in or a 3 in or a 2 in. And because of that, one of the reasons why I'm able to work the level that I'm in is because I've got really phenomenal people around me at this point in the business that are great at what they do. They're highly trustworthy. They do their jobs well. And it allows me to just be who I need to be for our clients and for them.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome to season 3 of Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not be a slave to their business. And we do that through CFO services, accounting, and consulting. Now, this is season 3. And your boy has met a lot of people now. We like 6.5 years in, going on 7. We've met a lot of people through social, just in general. And now I can kind of handpick some of the people. So this one guy, we talked, I think, like last spring, and he was just communicating how he was doing it on a super huge level and decided to kind of do his own thing. Faith is a huge part of his life. Family is a huge part of his life. And it was super interesting on how he was balancing all of those different components. So, without further ado, Trey is in the building. So tell the people who you are, name of the company, and what you guys provide.
Well, first of all, God bless you, man. Thanks for having me on. Love following you on social and love seeing your lifts and everything you're doing in the gym. As somebody who used to be almost 400 pounds and I'm trying to get down to 250, I can appreciate how consistent you are with that area of your life and how family first you are with so much of your content. So I'm honored to be here. So my name is Trey Sheneman. I own and founded a company 3 years ago that's called Herald. It's based off of scripture in Habakkuk 2:2. Write the vision and make it plain so that the herald can come in and run with it. And so we help businesses do just that. We help them with writing their vision. We consider that positioning and messaging. We do quite a bit under the story brand motif, as well as some other positioning frames that we've learned over the years. That's the write the vision, make it clear, making it plain. That's branding. That's design. That's video. That's content. That's how do we actually make what is seemingly complex for a lot of business owners very simple for their target audience, and then run with it. That's performance marketing. I would say that's probably our biggest sweet spot as a brand, a lot with conversion rate optimization, a lot with scaling ads. I've personally been a part of about $65-70 million in ad spend in the last 6 or 7 years across a wide array of business types. But most of the time, I've spent my time helping public figure brands or like founder-led brands figure out how to grow businesses past themselves. And so started Herald with the mission of we want to see 10 brands with $10 million of growth in the first 10 years of the company. We're 3 years in. We've already seen 3 hit that number since we kind of got tucked in with them. So excited about what we're getting to do, experiencing our own growth. Obviously, when you're running a business, it's like, I know how to market and now I'm having to figure out how to operate and the financial side and, all the leadership stuff that just comes with building and growing a team. So anyways, excited to talk today. I don't know if there's anything from what I've learned so far I can share that's going to be impactful, but I'm happy to talk about any of the above.
Well, okay. See, here y'all go. These geniuses, y'all, they just slide it in. So just 70 million in ad spend, work with people who are founder. Let's go into that. So what does a founder-led brand look like so that everybody's on the same page?
So a founder-led brand for us is when there tends to be a figurehead who is the face of the company. They tend to be in spaces that are related to their subject matter expertise, like speaking, coaching, consulting. I would argue your brand in some ways is even a founder-led brand since you're the starter, you start up, you're the face of it. You're the one that's out in front. You're the tip of the spear. My own brand is a microcosm of what I do. It's a founder-led brand. I'm building the way I'm building on LinkedIn. So what our role is historically was I had the good fortune of having a front row seat at several well-known founder-led brands. John Maxwell, I worked there for a while. Dave
Ooh.
Ramsey, I worked there for a while. Brendan Burchard, I worked there for a while. So I got to see from the inside out the way that they thought about making the longevity of their expertise live past themselves, and the way that they talked through the systems that required their businesses to move to 5 million, 10 million, 50 million, 100 million and up. And I got to be there on that journey of us really saying, how do we scale one person's brain? Ultimately really great founders are good at what they do because they're gifted. And so the best thing that I've learned how to do is take notes, Cameron. And so I just paid attention when I was inside of these organizations, not just to the part I was responsible for leading, because, I don't want this to come off pretentious, but I was there for a reason. I was there for the side of the business that I was good at, but that doesn't mean I was the only one there doing anything, right? There were so many other people there who were also very good at what they did. And I just took a lot of really great notes and paid attention. And I really did distill it down into a set of steps that every one of those businesses went through, that now we just help founder-led businesses install based on age and stage of where they are when we meet them. So, if they're sub 5 million, there's a set of steps. If they're trying to go from 5 to 20, there's a set of steps. If they want to go to 20 to 50, there's a set of steps. And if they want to go 50 plus, there's a set of steps, because I was able to get those experiences. So I'm able to lead from a unique set of experiences. So founder-led brands, subject matter experts that want it to be bigger than just them traveling and doing 100 stages a year. How do they take that expertise, package that expertise, and scale it out into what I would call a value ladder of offerings? Some affordable offers at the bottom, some higher ticket offers at the top, and drive that customer lifetime value over time so that somebody can be a customer for 5 years or 10 years. And so, that's ultimately what we're trying to install for companies at Herald.
All right, now see, y'all heard that name. I know if you know anything about business, he said John Maxwell. And everybody knows he's like the leadership guru doing it. And I've seen him speak, I think it was last 2 years ago, maybe. So I've seen him speak. He did like a 3-hour workshop, and you could tell this is somebody who's wise, knows his stuff.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
But let's stay right there on John Maxwell, so that way we can paint the picture. So somebody like him who has, I don't even know how many books it is, over 10.
110, I think.
110 books. So, and I'm sure this was years ago, but how do you amplify, or what do you tell people to amplify their message to even get to that level?
The lesson that I learned with John that I think the audience can learn is that packaging matters. And what I mean by that is, John was really, really, really successful. He's in his, I don't even know how old John is now. He's got to be in his late 70s at this point. But his 40s and 50s and 60s years, like that 30-year period, which would have been late 80s, all of the 90s, early 2000s, was really his hockey stick season. But packaging matters. He had hundreds of hours of cassette tapes when I got there. I mean, hundreds of hours. And, one of the main moves that they made when I was on the team, I was responsible for the nonprofit growth side of John's organization, but I got to pair with the for-profit side a lot. And one of the main things that, we kind of worked on together and sort of champion with there is hey, this knowledge is timeless and it's needed. And this cassette tape players aren't a thing anymore. There's got to be a way to digitize and stand up this content in more of a subscription offering. And so that was the genesis of them making what is now a completely rebranded business around a subscription offering, Maxwell Leadership. Years in the making. The genesis of those ideas started in 2017 and 2018 with what do we just need to do to make this audio content that's sitting on these physical asset cassette tapes digitized, which started as a podcast that led to some tiny offers, that led to a subscription, that led to recurring revenue. And in a way, John is ultimately immortalized in some ways. When you think about that, obviously he's truly immortalized because Christ in me, the hope of glory. He's a believer. As people of faith, that's what I believe. And so, but his business can live past him. The team can scale past him. So that was a big, huge thing that I saw them. I realized there is knowledge is only as good as the package it's in. And if it's not in a package that is accessible by more people, then it's not, is it really knowledge applied yet? It's really great knowledge for the few that have heard it. So that was the huge learning that I had there, is like the format has to match the avatar. And if you're not willing to produce the content in a way that matches the ideal consumption patterns of the target customer, of the persona, of the avatar, like however you want to use that phrase, John needed his audience to get younger than it was, because his audience was aging with him. And so that's not a scalable business anymore if your audience is going to age out with you. So just watching the way they pivoted when they were there, I was taking notes. I was paying attention on what's working and what's not. So yeah, that was my big takeaway from my time at in the Maxwell enterprise, was the packaging matters.
All right, so packaging matters. I love this part. Knowledge is only as good as the package it's in.
Yeah,
That's a bar for y'all, because to his point, I know what a cassette is because I was born in 1990. But I think if I were, I know my kids have no idea what a cassette tape is. I highly doubt my sisters would know, and they're like 23, 21. So to your point, yeah, you said some really good stuff, but just nobody remembers it or they can't access it. But like you said, then he pivots to, well, let's do a podcast. Now let's turn these into books. Now let's turn this into a continual coaching thing. So that one-time purchase, you just turned into recurring revenue.
exactly.
So that's great. That is awesome. Okay, so we got those notes. All right, who was the second person you said? You said John Maxwell and
Dave Ramsey.
Oh, Dave, brother Dave. I got such an interesting relationship with brother Dave. All right, let's talk about it though, because right now, to be honest though, because technically, remember, Trey's job is not
to create the expertise. It's just
correct. It's to make sure that you're branded at such a point to which, what do you, when you hear Dave Ramsey, you're thinking, oh, how to save money and get out of debt, which means Trey did his job, because that's what that's the brand part. Mm-hmm. All right, so now let's talk about lessons learned here, because Dave is not like just the local in Georgia or Tennessee part. Dave is known. He got the envelope method people know about. So talk us through, like, what are some of the key things that you kind of helped him move into?
So it was a really interesting time when I was brought on to join Ramsey. I was specifically brought on because they had spent 4 or 5 years developing EveryDollar, their digital version of the envelope system, their budgeting software, and they really felt like it was ready to scale. And they wanted somebody to come in that could really run a heavy performance marketing first acquisition plan. Within 3 or 4 months of being there, though, there was just some leadership changes kind of in the division that I was in, which was the Financial Peace University division. And I ended up being asked to step in and take over EveryDollar, Financial Peace University, the coaching program, and eventually the kind of corporate wellness product, which is called Smart Dollar. So basically, same teaching, the core concepts as FPU, but distributed in a bunch of different ways. And the main thing that I did there was, it's 2018, 2019. It's so timely because COVID was coming, but nobody knew. Nobody knew that lockdown of 2020 was coming. The big thing that I started pitching on was, I just don't think the distribution model of a 9-week in-person course has the ceiling on it that we want. I really do think we need to come up with a more different, in some ways a new package as well. A different set of wrapping paper around this offers, because when I got there, they were basically trying to sell EveryDollar and Financial Peace University as a bundle, like pay one price, get both. But it was referred to as a Financial Peace University membership. And I remember being in a meeting my very first week there, and it was a meeting where they were like, hey, we've all got hundreds of hours in this thing. You're the new guy. Respectfully, just take notes. And if something like major comes up in your brain, let us know. But if not, just kind of be cool. And I'm like, yeah, great, no worries. I'm not trying to make anybody mad. So I just listened for 2 days. At the end of the second day, the guy leading the meeting was like, all right, Trey, you've listened for 2 days. You have anything to add? And I was like, I'm stuck on one thing. The confused mind can't buy. And a university is something I only ever want to go to this many times. And then I want to graduate from it and move on. And a membership is something that I'm going to pay for forever. And I think that's oxymoronic. And I think it's confusing. And I just don't think anyone's going to buy it. And they're like, what would you do? And I was like, I would probably call it something more subscription friendly, like Ramsey Plus, because that was right when putting a plus on a thing was starting to become nomenclature for it being a subscription, it being a bundle of products that you're buying. That was when Hulu and Disney Plus and ESPN started becoming a thing. It's when Apple Plus TV was just starting to come. I was like, I think there's going to be a swing here in the market where people are just going to get it as soon as they see it. It's going to make our conversion rates go up. And we ended up running some split tests, and we doubled the conversion rate on the landing page by just simply playing around with the frame that we put on the same exact offer. And it was pretty revolutionary for me. Like that point in my career, we were able to really scale that thing up, and we started getting more digital first buyers than we were getting before. We were getting buyers that wanted to go to the local church, take the course, and then they might get the software. Well, now we started getting more software buyers, which fast forward to 2020, and guess what happens? The churches all shut their doors. They can't offer physical in-person FPU classes anymore. It had to be digital. Well, thank the heavens, we were prepared. Like we had been building it ahead of time. So, there should have been, Ramsey is, again, the most generous human being I've ever worked for, probably ever will work for. And they did so much for so many in that season when many others were having to lay people off because of downsizing and all this kind of stuff. We were able to basically take a very large division of people and just move the way that we made money so that no massive layoffs or firings, anything like that. And it was downstream from this really subtle, what seemed subtle on paper switch, but it proved to be this magnanimous move inside of the business. And so my lesson there is small levers can move big mountains. Like when you know what the right lever is to pull in a business, and you have a good framework for how you're going to test into those levers, you can be really, really surprised. And if you're running a business today, especially a digital business, the smallest, most pivotal levers are the ones closest to the point of sale, meaning those last few steps somebody's going to take before they decide yes or no to close a deal. So your final sales call and the presentation that you give on that call, or if it's an e-commerce deal or like a SaaS product, it's going to be that sales page that's at the very bottom of a very long funnel. It's if you can make adjustments there, the compounding effect up the funnel is just so much more revolutionary. And that's a huge thing that we ended up spending the next couple of years at Ramsey. Is like we were always tinkering with that core sales page. It never did not have somebody's eyes on it saying the conversion rate in the last 30 days was this. Our new goal is this. Here's the 7 things we're going to do to try and make it go from 2.5% to 3%. And then we wanted to go from 3.5% to 4%. And just that commitment to those small levers with a whole bunch of traffic, big results when you get it right. So the small levers can make a big difference.
Okay. Small levers can move big mountains. All right. Now, at this point, though, so we've done Maxwell, then we switched over to Ramsey. We haven't quite started your business yet. We just blessing other people with our time and talents.
Yeah.
Now tell me, what happened to make you go from, because these are, again, y'all, just in case you don't know who these people are, you probably know Maxwell, but Ramsey's not like this. Ramsey's doing big conferences at this because my buddies were going to try to go and they're like, oh, bro, it's $4, $5, $6 grand. So like, these are top people. What was it that kind of made you go from I'm doing great helping them to like, oh snap, I can do this on my own and help even more people that are probably smaller, but I can have more impact? What was that like?
Yeah. So that same year, 2020, 2021, while COVID was sort of, making people question everything, we actually had some personal things going on in our life, or my son's health. He's a really unique fella. He's got a crazy story, just been stumping doctors his whole life. But his health, we finally got into the water where he had some things that could potentially be life-threatening starting to come up. And so it just makes you, when you start going through something like that on top of COVID, and it starts making you look in the mirror going like, is this really the best use of my skills and gifts and talents? And so I would say it was a bit of an internal look around the quality of life we're trying to have as a family, and the flexible schedule that I was really looking to get to. So the first move I made was, Ramsey is a very in-person environment. I get it. I know who they are. It's part of their culture. So I knew once I kind of wanted to be home more that probably wasn't going to work. And so I was able to get a work from home CMO job a chief marketing officer job with a brand that's a global brand, fully remote. That was the exit ramp for them. But quite frankly, that business was run off of a launch model, which basically means there was only a real short period of time throughout the year where like we would actually take on customers. So it was a lot of downtime and then like really heavy 100-hour weeks for 3 or 4 months in a row. And so a little bit of a sidebar, before I went to work for Maxwell, I had run an agency for 7 years. And right before I got the job at Maxwell, we had closed the largest deal in the history of the agency I was working on. And when like a term of my employment for taking the job at Maxwell was, you have to give me permission to moonlight with this client. I'm not going to leave my agency out to dry. I just landed this deal. They're expecting me to work on it. So we just need to make the math work, where you understand nights and weekends, I'm still going to be working on this account. We worked it out. It was all good. Well, that means I kept that employment clause though in my employment agreements after that, because it just became a thing that I was used to. Like, you have to give me permission to moonlight. So I had it at Maxwell. I had it at Ramsey. I had it when I got the CMO job. So now I'm CMO and I'm out, and a buddy of mine reaches out in like February of that year. And he's like, hey man, is there any chance you could just take a look at my funnel for me on the side? I'm like, sure, buddy. I've been doing fractional stuff on the side for years. At this point, I'm happy to take a look at it. So we make some tweaks to his funnel. It's doing well. And he's like, all right, it's going so well, I need a copywriter and a designer and a media buyer now. Like, I need to build a team to put on this project, but I don't want to manage them. I want you to manage them. And I was like, I don't really have a way to manage, because he's just 1099ing me, at this point. And I don't really have a way to manage him. He's like, just, start an LLC and let me route the money to you. You hire them, you manage them, you pay them out of the LLC. Just send me one bill every month. You take care of it, run the funnel. I'm like, okay. So really, the LLC that is behind Herald the brand now kind of was just started out of a favor to a buddy, which is just so funny when you think about it. Because quite frankly, like, I was really pleased with the work that I was doing. I was from home. I was making a great living, So we do that and it goes well. And then a buddy of him is like, hey, who's running this? And he's like, well, it's my guy Trey, but he's probably too busy. So the guy calls me up. He's like, next thing I know, Cameron, a year later, I got 17 contractors working for Herald, and I'm working it 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a week on the side. We've got 7 funnels that we're running, and it's doing 6 figures a month. And it was like, what is happening? And I haven't even tried yet. That's
so this would have been, this was last year then.
So we started it in summer of 22, and by September of 23, it's 6 figures.
So that's when I remember you told me that you were like, we're not even trying, and people just keep finding me, and I'm super thankful, but I don't know how it's happening.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, so then when you think about building a business that it takes you 0 effort to close, it's like, okay, well, I only have so much time. And if you want it's a premium on that time, because there's only so much of it. Because in a way, me having a day job as a CMO, like, I had a lot of leverage of like, guys, there's only so much we can do here. So that was the genesis of it. Well, then summer of 23, we were kind of in a position with the day job at the time where like he really needed his CMO to be 50, 60, 70 hours a week committed, trying to earn out equity. Potentially that was never promised, but that was like something that was on the horizon. It seemed like they were going to try and build a piece of software that they could sell. And it's kind of going like, I don't know. I don't think I can be that guy. I got this other thing. And so we had a mutual split September of 23, and I went full time. And so now I've been full time for 17, 18 months with Herald. And it's been awesome, man. I mean, it is, I have been able to, have a lot of 2 and 3 day weeks, if I'm being fully transparent, which was a part of the lifestyle business that I was trying to build. We homeschool our oldest. We just recently started homeschooling our youngest as well. So we're trying to build a lifestyle that we want to live, that the business supports, not the other way around. And we're really on that path, man. And it's, we've had, we're super boutique. I jokingly say to people that me 12 was good enough for Jesus is good enough for me. Like, I don't ever want it to be more than that. Like, I want to keep it intentionally small. And so, we float between 8 and 12 brands at any one time that we're kind of advising. That's a really unique model. I don't see anyone running it the way we're running it right now, in a lot of different ways. If I'm being transparent, I feel like we have cracked this side of how to onboard a client really well, and then how to have a roadmap that's flexible for the client to be the advisor that they need. And the biggest shift of which for me in that was I was calling myself a fractional CMO there for a while. and a fractional CMO title came with CMO expectations, which is not what I'm actually trying to be for somebody. And I made a shift in like February, March of last year to call myself a growth advisor instead of a fractional CMO. So single greatest biggest business decision other than the small lever that I found at Ramsey, single greatest business decision I've ever made. Again, it's packaging issue. Same service, called something a little different, completely diffused clients' expectations in a way for me to come in and do what I'm great at, not have them frustrated asking me to do things I'm average at. And now we're really able to be uniquely in our lane on teams. And we've got clients right now. I mean, I kind of rattled off earlier some of the successes that we've seen, but we've got a good stable of clients now that are up and to the right. We're playing our part. We're loving life, super selective with who we work with. It's been great.
Okay, y'all. We got homeschooling, working 2 to 3 days a week, charging. It's a lot. We're going to try to get it. Okay. Yeah. Let's go, before we go to the personal life, let's go back to the charging premium, because I think incorrectly, there's this, I don't know if you want to call it stigma, but it's like you got to get as many clients as you can, as fast as you can, so that you can be on the jets and the Lambo and, you can show the money and all of that stuff. Versus you're going very opposite and you're like, I need 8 to 12. Yeah. And they just need to be the right fit.
Yeah.
But to your point, I'm charging them premium prices because I'm getting them premium results. So talk about what kind of helped you to make the decision of I only need 8 to 12 versus kind of getting caught up in, well, hey, we can have more money and I can help my family do more of this and I can do this and I can do that. Like, how did you kind of settle on that model for you?
Well, the math for me is the way I would say I started it. I said, my wife and I agreed that we would much rather me make what I was making at my last CMO job and work half as much as I was and be a much more available husband and father and all those things. And that's always been the game plan we're going towards. Of course, there's been plenty of weeks in there that haven't been 2 or 3 days a week. There's just, they're happening enough now that I know it's in the future. Like we're almost there, like with the system. So it started with the rules of engagement that we wanted to see happen. And quite frankly, the biggest influence on me thinking about values-based pricing rather than deliverables-driven kind of pricing was Chris Do and what he's doing with the future and the way he approaches creative, a lot of creative thinking. And so, I'll break it down for you. The main way I am able to do what I do is we have a unique framework that if you want to work with us, you have to be willing to submit yourself to. It's called the Compass. We call it the Compass framework because it ends up showing us the exact way forward for your brand when we're done running it. It points the direction. It also, we charge $10,000 to $15,000 for it. So only certain businesses are willing to come right out of the gate with 10 or 15 grand on the front end for no results, just for research and problem assessment. It's basically an audit. It's a series of audits. And that allows us to spend 4 to 6 weeks getting to know the client, getting to know their team, understanding their funnel at a deep level, understanding their target audience at a deep level, and then building a strategy that's 90 to 100 days, 80 days long that I'm really confident is going to work because I slowed down to speed up and do it the right way. But we're also able at the end of that first project together to go back to a client and say, look, you got 3 options. We've built this in a way that you could give it to your team and they can execute it without me being involved. It's that thorough. They just need to go and do it. Or they can do it and I can stay on as your growth advisor and we can do weekly calls as you're implementing it. And I can make sure that if you hit any roadblocks, we can adjust the plan as we go. Or if there's any part of this plan that you're like, no, we do not have the team to do this. We really need your help. That's where the agency side of our business can step in and actually run some of the implementation. And so because we have that higher ticket item on the front end, and because we've only ever sold that off of a wait list, there's only ever been a wait list on my website since it started. Why a wait list? Well, because when I started, I had a full-time job. So I had to have a wait list. So I just kept the wait list. Like even when I've been full-time, I just keep a wait list. So we're always on a wait list. And then I say, all right, we got 2 slots that open up for this quarter. It's a Compass. You know the price. Are you ready to begin? No, you want to stay on the wait list? Great. You can wait till next quarter. If you don't, you want to come off, you'll come off. And so we just run it that way. Well, now they've paid $10,000 to $15,000 for me to tell them what to do. So when I come back at $7,000 to $20,000 a month based on growth advisor or growth advisor plus a whole bunch of services, they kind of already expected it to be worth that amount based on the value that they just got out of that first deal. So it really the way we onboard, because it really the compass is our way of getting paid to sell to clients we want to sell to. Because if we don't really want to work with them, guess who gets the bigger out at the end of the compass? Me. Because now the pitch becomes, here's the results of your compass. Let me know if you get stuck. I can jump in here or there after the way. But if they really were problematic during the compass, we decided this is like oil and water. We're not going to get along. I have just as much of an out as they do. But if they were a really great client to work with, and I'm looking at the roadmap going, man, they are going to go zoom when they implement these changes. Well, then, of course, I want my brand to be there and connected to them when they're going to implement those changes in some way, shape, or form, because then we get to be a part of the party. So it's a really unique wrinkle that I do as an agency that's a bit more Deloitte, McKinsey consultative approach on the front end that makes all the difference for us. That's what keeps us boutique, is because of that heftier kind of upfront commitment. It makes us we're not a commodity. Like when we do that, we are not a commodity. We are truly viewed as a growth partner at the table, not a vendor. I would argue many of our friends that are doing $500 a month or $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month, kind of set it and forget it, ad management or SEO or whatever it is, very vendor first. That is not who we are. One of our core values is, we call it same side of the table. We want our clients to feel like we were both sitting on the same side of the boardroom table, looking at the problems together, looking at the whiteboard together, and making plans. And so we try and live that out with the way we even sell.
This man giving y'all a master class. I just wrote, having a specific framework makes a difference in what you can charge.
It does. Yeah. Amen.
All right. Now let's go to the personal side. So you talked a little bit about family, talked about wifey, homeschooling kids. Let's talk about this, because from what I've heard, homeschooling is on the rise. I know we homeschool as well. So in being not only a great business owner, what does that look like in trying to continue? And it's always a challenge to be a better parent. How is like homeschool kind of fit into this, and what does that look like with you being the one that works?
Yeah, great. I love this. I love this topic. I think we are an advantaged family in this regard, because my wife and I both met in private Christian education. So my first career before I got into digital marketing, I went to seminary and I was on staff at a church in Metro Atlanta that was a church and a school combo. And so I worked for the church and the school. I was the head of the Bible department. I taught high school English and speech writing and debate and chapel. And my wife was a middle school teacher. And so we met in education. So the idea of us eventually educating our kids once they got to the age that we felt comfortable teaching them, which would be middle school and high school, we kind of always thought that would be in our future. So outside of us already feeling a bit more equipped than maybe the typical family might feel, I think the bigger thing is this homeschool has really advanced itself, especially post-COVID. You had a lot of people that were really dissatisfied with some of the decisions that were made around the educational experience of kids during COVID. They were like, this is not okay. And the trend, even though some of them have gone back, to kind of traditional school, many of them have not. And so I would say the resources that are out there, the tutorials that are out there, the kind of co-ops that exist between homeschool communities, make it a lot easier for homeschool to be a legitimate way of life now, all the way through high school and college. So that's number one. Number two, for me, I fundamentally think higher education is disgustingly broken at its core. And so it's more of a worldview thing for me. I saw a study recently, believe what you want to believe, but for me, as traditionally conservative, there was a study done of the top 50 institutions in America and what percentage of the professors in those schools have a progressive ideology, as a person of faith, very progressive, very anti some of the things I'm worth. And it was something like engineering was the only field where progressive ideology was 85% of the teachers were progressive, 15% weren't. Every other field of the top 50 studies that they did, it was 14% or less of the professors in those fields were moderate or conservative. So for me, the idea of if they're not going to go to college long-term or the kind of traditional college, I'm going to teach them entrepreneurship at a young age. So my kid works in my oldest works in my business. He's learning skills now as a 14-year-old that he could carry going forward. The youngest will work in the business too. So it's more of the entrepreneurial mindset that we want to instill in our kids of like, the world is your oyster. You can be what you want. A really great business you own that pays you $70,000 or $80,000 a year is probably going to be worth more than some job you hate, that you loathe, and $150,000 in debt that you had to take to go and get that job that you late in your home. So it's more of a worldview thing that we have too, that homeschool just made total sense for what we want. Now, pulling it off, we have to do it in shifts. So there's certain subjects,
You like, I mean,
there's certain subjects my wife is just more naturally gifted at teaching, and there's certain ones that she just cries uncle, and dad has to be the one to step in, which means like I've got 2 different 2-hour blocks held on Mondays and Fridays during the day that are my homeschooling blocks. I don't take meetings. Those are my blocks. That's where I chip in. And there's also, Tuesdays and Thursday nights in the evenings, I'm doing a lot of math with my oldest at this point. He's in algebra. We're kind of working on that. So we just make it work. We travel a fair amount as well as a family. So we just take it with us, when we go. They are in the oldest is in a co-op. So I would just say, if you're considering it, there is a lot there. The success rate of having a high quality homeschool experience is much higher in 2025 than it even would have been in 2017 or 2018, because there is a lot of systems that have been built, a lot of great curriculum manufacturers out there, a lot of programs that are like, they can get 30% of it online, self-guided, and then you have to step in to kind of fill in the rest and the gaps. So that's what we're finding. We're making it work for us. We're not on the same standard schedule that everyone, because for us, homeschool can last year round. It doesn't have to be spring only, fall only, so that we want our kids to learn from the world around them at all times. That's another approach we take when we go on trips. Like just a couple weeks ago, we studied the parable of the sower, and then we went on a mountain hike that same day, and we found the 4 different kinds of soil on our hike. And it was like trying to anchor them into, where's your heart posture at? Which one of these things does your heart look like right now? So like it's a very hands-on team. We're doing this thing. We love it. And we love it, man. Like I don't know what would have to happen to make us change the path we're on right now. Like it feels like, the good old years. I think it feels like we're living the good old years right now. And we really want to, especially with my son's health being the way it is, we really don't want to take any day for granted.
okay, now you said a lot there. Is there specific, like one of the curriculums that you really like? Because maybe the people are like, "Ooh, I've been looking for something." Because I know, like in our case, we're kind of hybrid, so to speak, to where I think the state of Georgia, they have, I forget the name of it. So like they go on, the teachers they're teaching, that you can see the other kids, still kind of self-directed. They got videos and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but we like to supplement because, to your point, like we just came back from Nicaragua. Well, you don't have to go read on Spanish. We can just go to the country where all they do is speak Spanish, and now you get to feel the culture, versus you would never get this because you be in traditional school. So
Yeah.
for those people who may want to kind of switch for maybe even that hybrid method like we're doing, or I've been kind of thinking about it, praying about it, what would the curriculum that you would suggest that kind of helped you
Yeah.
to facilitate this?
Yeah, I would say there's 3 that I would recommend reviewing. The one that I'm going to mention is not one that I would personally recommend, but there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't fit the style that we want. But Classical Conversations is probably the most vetted, widely acceptable homeschool governance body and curriculum manufacturer sort of out there. They're sort of like the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Not that we've had a bad experience with Classical Conversations. I would say we're a bit more piecemeal in our approach. We wanted to go subject by subject and kind of find what we thought was best in class for each of their experiences. So where we landed is my alma mater, Liberty University, has Liberty Online Academy. That's all grades, which is a bit of a hybrid. So you enroll in that program. There's lectures, video, independent study stuff, support materials that come in the mail. Like it's a bit of a hybrid. We would choose to use it in some capacity, is the way I would say it. We might not enroll them the whole year, but we might cherry pick some specific classes that we want them to take in that model. So that's the first thing. The Good and the Beautiful is another curriculum manufacturer. It's probably our favorite from their holistic approach to scripture, as people of faith, the Christian faith in our household. I think they do the best job of like helping you see the world through the lens of the Creator, and the way these subject areas fit that world, to me, in my opinion. And then Saxon math is phenomenal. Like just primarily because at least in our circles, math is the hardest subject to homeschool because all of us, you're in accounting, so you're fine with some levels of math, but a lot of people, they took math because they had to take it to graduate, and outside of balancing a checkbook, now everybody uses, they use their phones to do all the, like, it's just one of those ones, like, you just forget. You definitely don't remember geometry and trigonometry and all those guys, And
Yeah.
so that what I appreciate about Saxon is their support materials for a parent having to be the educator are really, really good. Like we're even into middle school math right now, and I'm going, hey buddy, I actually got a really high score on the SAT in math, and I don't remember any of this, so it's going to take me a minute.
I gotta go study.
Yeah, I have to study. So that's what I would say. I would say approaching homeschool as it really can be what you want it to be. You don't have to prescribe to one or the other. You can literally handpick the experience you want your kids to have and what you want to have as their primary instructors. And you can decide to be 100% you and 0% no one else, or about 50% you and 50% others, which is what we do. So our oldest goes to a 2-day-a-week lecture-based college prep tutorial. What does that mean? 6th through 12th grade. It's block scheduling on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He gets all of his lectures in his core subject areas very didactically from master's level teachers that were just over the public school system. So they're certified. They're awesome. But they love the homeschool model. He then works off of a syllabus for the rest of the time, independent study. We proctor his exams, and we step in when he gets hung up on his core subjects outside of the teacher. So they're doing the main heavy lecture. We're doing the support. And then there's a couple of subjects where we're the main one, and he's not getting the support. So that works for us. It costs us about $4,000 a year for him to be in that program. So it's not as expensive. Like private school here where we live is bananas in Metro Nashville. Like the most affordable one is $16K a year. We have several that are $35 to $50K a year, and people pay it like it's going out of style. Like that's not where we're going to be. So again, it's a
Which shout out to y'all if that's what you feel is best.
right.
But we just talking about as someone. I think the thing that I want to make sure that the viewer gets, hey, you gotta do what's best for your family. But he's just giving you a method that works. What's best
That's
for
right.
him, his experience, what he's seen, his core beliefs as a person, and all of those things. This is what he's found is the best. Now, if you want to go spend your 50 grand,
Yeah, it's been.
But we talking about for the people who are willing to kind of, I guess you could say, shift your focus and are more willing to have that unique experience. Because talk about, let's go to this part. Well, no, before we go to that, I was going to say about how you feel this brought you closer to your kids. But before we do that, classical conversations, Liberty Online, Good and Beautiful, and Saxon Math. So in a perfect world, you're saying combine Liberty Online with the good and the beautiful, and then Saxon is there to help me fill in the gaps in a perfect world.
Nailed it. Yep.
Okay. Now we got that. Now, this is why I think people pick homeschools. Now, to your point, society, we kind of slipping a little bit. Don't know if I want you thinking of the world in that way. So outside of that part, I hear a lot of people, and this is kind of one of the reasons we pick it as well, was about the closeness it brings to you as a family. Because I think the old stigma is like, oh, your kid's homeschooled, they're gonna be socially awkward and they're not gonna be able to. And then people meet my kids and they're just like, they are so funny, they're so well behaved, they're so polite. And I'm like, I mean, we talk to them every day. Like,
Yeah.
The rules are so kind of go through that and like what you've seen in bonding with your kids versus what you've seen with like maybe some of their friends or some of the other people at church, and like talk through that for me.
I will tell you, I have found that these kids we're around, between what we do with our family, kind of the groups that we run with the other homeschool families, I have never met more reticent, strong communicating, mature kids than the ones that I've met in this place, because this is not to discount the public school system by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not raining on that. I'm just saying there is something to be said for you taking the primary role, and ultimately what I think you would agree with, and how I would say it, ultimately what is the discipleship of your children. And their educational process is just a huge piece of that. That's the first thing I would say. I would say their willingness to be able to lean into you and see you as somebody that they can approach with questions, and you can give them answers. It's a muscle that they work out so much more, and the trust and the authority that they start to impute to you more as your mother and father, also as their primary teachers, as opposed to these other authorities that they're meeting in their life at school that might, quite frankly, have differing views and approaches, or again, can work for some. What I'm saying, what we have experienced has been the deep connection we feel with our kids because of the amount of sheer time and energy we spend with them now. I just don't think we can get these years back personally. And I mean, I think we have an incredible relationship because of it. Like, I think they know they're loved and seen, and they belong, and they fit in just as they are, and they don't have to perform or do any of these things that others say they might have to do in a special way. They get to pursue things they're passionate about and interested in, rather than this like forced design around everyone is going to do this, like very lemming style. Like, that was another huge thing for us, was like being able to, like, our son he's gotten into piano and he's on the spectrum, which was another consideration for us of like, how is a kid that's a little different of a learner going to do in this scenario? And quite frankly, he thrives. Like,
This is the oldest or the youngest?
Our oldest. Yeah. He thrives, man. Like, little things like he's got a keyboard in his room and a grand piano or a upright piano downstairs. And he loves the piano, and he can play piano 2 hours a day if he wants to in the middle of the day right now. Like, it's a core subject. It's in his curriculum for us, piano. He's passionate about it. Cool. And it's like we're discovering right now what the youngest one is going to be passionate about. And whatever it is that they're passionate about, we're going to weave it into their life experience because they enjoy it and it's fresh. And so another wrinkle we do for the oldest son, there's 3 or 4 times a year that he goes with me on some of the client trips. And it's like, we've got a client in the ag space, and he does these field days where they're doing samples in the soil and educating farmers about his expertise and how to grow better crops and everything. And he'll go and he'll take photos and little videos and write a book report and have to interview the farmers. And he's getting this real world experience in a very specific backbone industry of America that he just is not going to get sitting from 7 to 3 in the school down the street. So I think the memories that they're making too are going to be so much more deep seated in a positive way. When I think back to my own childhood and my own public school days, many of my memories are the negative ones of way kids spoke to me, treated me, those big moments where I let myself down. And I'm just trying to have a different record, playing in the hearts and minds of my kids when they get older about their childhood than it was different than mine. And we felt like homeschooling was the platform to get us there.
That's so good. I love that because like you said, and see, okay, let's go here. Now this, I ain't asking this for the people, I'm asking this for me. I've been thinking really hard about taking the oldest with me. And I've seen some people even talk about that, like, of course, on social, like, man, you should try to, like, oh, I'm nervous. How would you say to best handle that? Because like in my case, she's about to be 10 in June, so she's 9 right now. Okay. Super smart. Everybody just thinks she's the funniest thing in the world. So I would think I can bring her, but I'm not going to lie to you. I'm kind of nervous because I'm like, well, what is she going to do? Is she going to get bored? Like, so how would you kind of coach a parent who is doing what we're doing and thinking about possibly bringing their kids on trips and like how to manage that situation?
Yeah, I think understanding the exact thing they're going to go and do, like if I was going to go to, like, I was just in Phoenix a couple weeks ago for 3 days, and it was wall to wall meetings for 3 days. It's like, that's not a trip that I'm going to consider. His name's Bear. I'm not going to consider Bear going with me on that trip. Now, back in August of last year, so I'm an adjunct for one of our clients. We run their marketing, and they're an alternative to higher education. They're called Unbound, and I run their marketing, and I'm an adjunct professor. I teach digital marketing and entrepreneurship inside of the program. And so they had an event at a Young Life camp for 4 days that was like an intensive for the students. And it's like perfect thing for Bear to go to. They got go-karts that we could do during our free time. He got to sit in lectures. He did studies on everything that the talks were about. So it's like, like what I would consider is like more of the conference vibe. That those sort of trips are the things that I look at in my business. Well, could they go? Could I buy them a junior ticket? Could I talk to the event host and say I'd like to bring my child with me because they're a burgeoning entrepreneur. They got something to learn. That's the first way I started approaching it, was those kind of events. And it's like, what did you learn? What did you take notes? Teaching them how to shake people's hands, introduce himself, ask them follow-up questions, pay attention. It's like the social skills side of it. Those are the ways I identify trying to bring him into business. But like heavy me just doing my meeting kind of a day, that's not really something I would consider. So that's the wrinkle I would say, is like find those spots of your business that they could come and just be a fly on the wall, but make sure there's an outcome that you're looking for them to assign to the trip. Obviously, they're going to get spend time with you, stay in a hotel, have cool food. Like all those things are true, but it's like, what's the one or two or three lessons you learned of either the way dad interacted on this trip, or a person that you met, or a thing that you heard, so that it can count in their development and their learning. Like that's the reason why he would go on these trips with me. And we've got 2 already planned this year that he's going to go on, which I'm really excited about.
Okay. That was so good. So good. All right. Um Working 2 to 3 days a week, because this kind of flows into the same thing. Now, of course, you didn't start out this way.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, you were working regular like everybody else and then putting in extra on the side. So I think that's very keen to say. Like,
Yes.
you may can't start. Like, you may be year 2 or year 3. You may can't come in and go straight to 2 to 3 days. You may have to put in that 6 to 7 day a week type of grind
Yeah.
in order to work here. So tell them, what have you kind of noticed that's kind of helped you go from every single day to now, like we're like 4.5 days?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where we're at right now is it's more like 4 to 5 hours, 5 days a week, instead of 3, 8 or 9 hour days. It's the same 25 to 27 hours. I've just moved it into, I don't take any meetings before 10 a.m. That's just a rule that I have. That's because I'm going to prioritize time with the father, time with my crew, and time at the gym. Like that's been a big thing for me kind of in this year of like, I know if I don't do those things, I'm going to burn out. As a business guy, those are core foundational things for me. What I noticed was I spent a lot of time really leaning into the concept of like, what am I at this point in my life? I've got this little, I don't know if I heard it or learned it or came up with it. I don't remember, but I've said it enough now that I take credit for it. I'm just being fully transparent. But I say to people, your 20s and your 30s are your learning years, and your 40s and your 50s are your earning years. Your 60s and your 70s are your returning years, and your 80s and beyond are your yearning years. And what I mean by that is like, I just spent the last 2 decades really zeroing in on, man, I am uniquely good at this thing. Like I am a 10 out of 10 on like this part of the spectrum. I don't really want to train my weaknesses anymore and go from being a 2 to a 4 in something. I just want to continue to be a 10 out of a 10 and these things. And I'm just going to hire for everything else that I am not, a
Yeah.
strong in, that I'm a 4 in or a 3 in or a 2 in. And because of that, one of the reasons why I'm able to work the level that I'm in is because I've got really phenomenal people around me at this point in the business that are great at what they do. They're highly trustworthy. They do their jobs well. And it allows me to just be who I need to be for our clients and for them in this season, which looks right now with 9 clients, like 25 to 28 hours a week. I can get my job done every week. Um, and it's super healthy. So it's the combination of sharpening my axe to where like you give me that tree, the tree's coming down in a blow or two kind of thinking. And it's like, yeah, but it's not that tree or that tree or that tree or that tree. Like those aren't my trees. Like I will just refer you out. If you come to me with those problems, I'm not even going to pitch you. I referred 3 people out this weekend just by itself. I'm like, yeah, not the right tree for Harold. And so part of that is like continuing to laser in on who we really can help. It doesn't feel like work. We're really good at it. So that's a big part of how I was able to massage my time down. And the other thing I would say is like the creative pricing on the front end doesn't stop on the front end for us. We have several deals after they get to 3, 6, 9 months of working with us where we say, okay, we understand your business now. You understand our business. What if we switch this from a retainer to a performance agreement and we just all take the lid off this thing together and you just reward us on the upside, because it's going to take about this many of those to go to the level of anything I've built inside of a company in the past, and our whole life is going to change forever. And so, we're excited. I shared with you before you hit record, like the reason why I said I'm really excited about 25 is we've got a couple of those we've already identified where it's like, okay, we're finally into this space where we really can take the top off of the client's business, which will in turn take the top off of our business. So I'm excited to see what 25 and 26 and 27 can be. As again, we continue to sharpen that axe and lean in. So that's been the ticket for me is I'm just trying to be good at what I'm good at, and that'd be enough. And the good news is because I only need 8 to 12, it isn't hard to stay busy. I don't need 100 relationships. I don't even do any marketing. Like I have my own podcast coming out in a couple of weeks, more because it's a passion project than it is like I'm necessarily trying to get clients from it. I just feel like I've got lessons, frankly, like what we've talked about on here to just share. And I've been sitting on it for a while, and I'm like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it because I want my kids to be able to hear it one day. I don't really care if others listen to it or not. I think they will, but I'm not doing it for that. And so I'm just really resolute right now around what the key drivers for us are. And because of the wait list and the limited client engagements and the laser focus on what we do, we haven't had to go out and get business in 3 years of starting the company. The business just finds us, which is a really awesome place to be.
Okay. Dang it. We're at time. All right. Let's go rapid fire.
Okay.
If you could get in a time machine and go back for 30 seconds to talk to a high school or college version of Trey, and you know everything like to the second, you only got 30 seconds. What do you go back and tell them?
Don't put the pen down and keep writing poetry because social media is going to come out and you could be a rapper in a former life if you wanted to be. I'm half joking and half true. I always joke and say if social media came out 10 years before, I wouldn't be in this position. I'd be making music on YouTube. But realistically, 30-second Trey, I would say the quicker you realize that it's your brain and the unique ways you can make complex things really simple with the words that the Lord has given you, and really honing that craft of concise and dense communication, the faster you're going to get to what your unique call is.
Okay. Top 3 things to not do if you want to get to that $1 million mark.
Top 3 things to not do. I would say number 1, don't only hire onshore. Hiring offshore can be your friend if you can find really, really good talent in other places. Number 2, I would say don't keep good financials and stay in the blind about what your true profit per client is. Like if you don't understand what your profit per client is and you can't dissect why your profit per that client was different than your profit for the other client from a management standpoint, if you don't know those numbers, you're not ever going to get to $1 million. And the third thing I would say is don't go and try and be all things to all people and do 15 different marketing channels. Pick one really great way of getting customers and be the best in your service area getting customers that way, and watch what happens when the clients come.
Okay. Dang it, we got to end. All right, y'all. That was some good stuff. All right, let me just recap because I'm trying to think in. All right, Trey, cinnamon like cinnamon.
Yes.
Work with founder-led businesses like John Maxwell and Dave Ramsey. What did he learn from working with John Maxwell? That packaging matters. Knowledge is only as good as the package it is in. What did he learn from Dave Ramsey? That small levers can move big mountains. You just got to find what that small lever is. We talked a lot about homeschool. Check out the resources. Get into some co-ops if possible, because it can be what you want it to be. It will allow you to build deeper relationships with your kids. We talked about like the top 4 kind of curriculums that he would choose, especially if you're in a person of faith. Classical Conversations, Liberty Online. He said like he likes to kind of pick specific ones. The Good and the Beautiful, because he thinks like from the Bible point of view, that's the most comprehensive. And Sacks and Math, because don't nobody like math like that. Then we talked about charging a premium. The main thing that he kept hitting on was he had his own framework, but having a very specific framework that solves very specific problems will allow you to think more from a value-based pricing model than just per project per hour. Top 3 things to not do if you don't want to hit 7 figures. Don't just hire people that are here locally. Don't stay in the blind about your numbers. Y'all already know how I feel about that. And don't try to be all things to all people. Pick a very specific group and things of that nature. So with that being said, let's say somebody listens to this and they're like, Trey, I don't know why, but I need to find a way to work with you. I don't care if it's at the lower level, this top level you're talking about. How do they get in touch with you? How do they do that?
The two things I would say is the only social media profile I'm consistently active on is my LinkedIn account, but I do write over there a lot. So connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Trey Shinneman like Cinnamon on that platform, so I'm easy to find. And I would say selfishly here, and I don't know when this episode's dropping. I know when we're recording it. I do have a podcast called 10 Minute Masterclass that's dropping in late February, early March of 2025. It's going to be a weekly 10-minute deep dive into one specific area to challenge you in your marketing, your sales, your operations, or your leadership. And I've been working on it for a year and a half, and I'm really, really, really excited about it coming out. So if you want to, if you're listening to this, you like podcasts. If you want to hear my personal podcast, I'd love to invite you to listen to 10 Minute Masterclass when it comes out.
What about a website or something if they like, I want to work with you?
Yeah. If you want to work with me, you can go to We Are Herald like an angel or a messenger, not the dude. WeAreherald.co, not .com. WeAreHerald.co. Check us out. There's a form there. It'll come right to my inbox. If you're in the founder-led space, we'd love to talk.
Okay. I told y'all, my job is to connect you with people that are moving the needle, changing their communities, making the finances, but of course, not leaving those who are important behind. And I think Trey's a good example of that. So, with that being said, if y'all need him, if y'all want to check out his podcast, we'll try to link it all below. If you want to reach out to him, he told you how to do that. You just may want to ask more questions on homeschool because you're like, man, that really resonated with me. How can you give me some more details? I'm sure he's going to be happy to talk to you.
Absolutely.
So, with that being said, y'all, you know the drill. Thank you guys so much for your attention. Share this episode, like it, send it to a buddy that you think would love to hear this. And with that being said, until the next episode, you guys stay safe. Peace.